Good morning. How's everyone? Good. Thanks for coming to Civil's demo today. My name is Nue Vong. I'm the lead designer at Civil.
My name is Nick. I'm an engineer at Civil working on our governance.
And I'm Matthew Isles, and I'm our CEO. We like to say that we are trying to cleave the internet in two. There's the noise, nastiness, misinformation, and perverse incentives, journalistically speaking, of the current digital media landscape, and then there's Civil. Civil is the decentralized marketplace for sustainable journalism. We are using blockchain and crypto economics to derive a network purpose-built for journalism, where journalists and citizens are co-owning and co-operating in the marketplace's governance and benefiting from its long-term growth and viability. The atomic unit on Civil is a newsroom, which is a news organization housing any number of journalists with complete business autonomy and editorial independence. We like to say that Civil is an open publishing platform in the sense that anyone can technically become a journalist on Civil, but you first need to apply. And for that, we're going to learn a little bit more about how that process works here today.
Yeah, so we're here to talk about governance on Civil. The primary purpose of governance is to determine which newsrooms are ethical and reliable enough to belong on our platform. And to handle this process, we use something called a token curated registry. Next slide. Token curated registry is a decentrally curated, is this the right slide? Okay. It's different than it was before. Anyways, a TCR, token curated registry, is a decentrally curated list that has economic incentives for voters to vote and curate the list in accordance with a shared set of values.
That shared set of values is what we call the Civil Constitution, which we published last week. The Civil Constitution does three things. The first thing it does is it states that the Civil Media Company, our company, is turning over authority of its invention, the Civil Protocol, to this document, the Civil Constitution, making it the law of the land, so to speak. The second thing it does is it states the mission, purpose, values, ethics, and working standards of this journalism platform. We joke that we're trying to reinvent a lot of things in journalism, but the last 100 years or so of journalistic ethics are pretty well understood, and that's an area that we haven't reinvented too much. In fact, we've done a lot of that work with a community of up to 50 journalists and free press lawyers helping us in that regard. And the third thing the Civil Constitution does, it speaks to the actual mechanics of this self-governing mechanism and how the document, in fact, becomes a living document over time.
Yeah, so we designed our TCR with input from newsmakers, First Amendment specialists, crypto economic experts, and news readers to make sure that it's serving everyone's needs. And what this means is that in addition to the so-called standard TCR implementation that you may know from AdChain, we have additional features including an appeal process. So if the challenge, people don't think that the challenge result was correct, they can appeal that to a civil council, which is a group made up of First Amendment specialists and experts. And then if the community really feels like their decision was incorrect, they can actually challenge that decision and overrule it with a supermajority. And this creates a system of checks and balances so that the list can be curated decentrally at scale and at the highest quality.
So today we are going to show you and demonstrate you how this process works by a live action role-playing game. We are going to play the roles of the applicant, the challenger, and the civil counsel. And you all get to be a part of this demo as well. So with you, you should have a pamphlet when you come into the door. There's a Post-it note, a red and a green one. Yes, that one. You are our civil token holder community, and you get to participate as our community as we go through this process together. Are you ready? Yeah.
Why it's important? Why it's important? Take it. So yeah, before we get into it, I want to talk a little bit about why people care about the civil registry. So a news reader would care about the civil registry because it helps inform the way that they interpret the news that they're seeing. maybe they come to the civil registry, to our front page, and they go to an article from there, and they know that the content they're reading is coming from a newsroom that's been vetted by the community. Maybe they access that website externally, and they see that the newsroom is whitelisted, and they know that they can trust it a bit more. If they notice that they're reading an article from a newsroom that's not on our registry, they're going to be extra careful about believing the content of that article.
Hello. I am so excited to start a newsroom on civil, and the number one thing that I want to dedicate my newsroom to is Boston sports. Oh, I love Boston sports. Oh, man. And you know what? There is just a dearth of Boston sports news coverage, and I want to fill the void. So I'm going to apply to start a Boston sports-focused newsroom on civil. To do this, I'm going to communicate the mission of our newsroom, which I've kind of already stated, our intended community, which I've also kind of spoken to, how we intend to seek funding from our community, and what we intend to do with that funding as we grow and sustain ourselves. We also need to list the roster of the people associated with this newsroom, so the credentials that speak to why we believe that we are the experts or have the ability to deliver on our promise. We have to sign the Civil Constitution, pledging to abide by its ethics and values. And then we have to stake an amount of civil tokens, represented here by this delicious candy.
All right, so by staking these tokens, we've kicked off what's called the application stage. Now the community sees the application, and they can judge for themselves if they think that it should be challenged. So if they think that the newsroom is does not belong in the registry, they can challenge it. Does anyone think that they do not belong? Any challengers in the audience?
Right here.
Oh, wow. What a surprise.
My name's John. I'm a lifelong Yankees fan, and I hate Boston. Boston sucks. I've actually never even been to the city, but I've been to tons of Yankee games, and the fans, they're the worst. They don't deserve news about Boston Red Sox, about the Patriots, about sports in general. So I think this newsroom does not deserve to be on this platform, and I'm going to stake an equal amount of civil token to say they don't belong.
All right, so by staking these tokens, John has kicked off the voting stage. So as we mentioned earlier, you have two Post-it notes on the handout we gave you earlier, a green or lime-colored one and a red or salmon-colored one. In a moment, we're going to ask you to close your eyes and raise the Post-it note that corresponds to your vote. Not yet, not until you close your eyes. So if you think that the newsroom belongs on the registry, you're going to want to hold up the green. And if you think that the newsroom, oh yeah, I have it already, does not belong, you're going to want to hold up the red. So take a minute, not yet, take a minute to come to your decision, look through the Constitution a bit. We have a summary of it here, and really decide how you think you're going to vote. It's important to remember that if you vote with the majority, you're going to be rewarded a bit with a little bit of civil tokens, aka candy. Let's take a minute. All right, everyone's ready? Okay, make sure you know which one you're going to raise. Close your eyes.
Close your eyes.
Close your eyes.
Close your eyes.
I see one eye doesn't count. Both eyes. Both eyes. Okay.
Votes up.
Votes up. Okay, open your eyes. Keep your hands up. All right. Take a look around. Nice. The greens have it. So the newsroom won the challenge. Congratulations.
Go Sox.
So, even though the challenge has ended and the newsroom has won, there is now an opportunity for someone to appeal the result of this challenge to our council. Maybe they just really think that the community got this one wrong, and the council should take a look at it. Wonder if anyone wanted to appeal. Anyone wants to appeal the decision?
Yeah, right here.
Oh, okay.
This decision is completely wrong. Obviously, come on, really? So I'm going to buy some more civil token, and I'm going to appeal to the council to challenge this challenge right here.
All right. Over to our council.
Well, yes. I represent the Civil Council, and we agreed to hear this challenge. So let me get on a conference call with the rest of my members, and we will discuss and deliberate. We will also examine our civil constitution, which is online, and we will get back to you in a second. Yep. Okay, well, we have reached our decision, and our decision is that biases, including sports biases, is not a valid reason to remove the newsroom, and so we're not going to grant your appeal, but we appreciate your enthusiasm, and we encourage you to read our civil constitution. So our final verdict is the newsroom can stay.
All right, congratulations. So there is now another possibility for the community to challenge that decision. We're not going to go through that now. We're running out of time, and it's a bit complicated. But again, the community could challenge that decision and overrule it by a supermajority vote. All right, so.
That's how it works. And who put your greens up? If you had green.
If you had green, no lying.
Be honest. So we're going to hand out some civil tokens. Go ahead, Nick.
So for surviving the challenge or having a successful application, the applicant gets their original deposit back. It stays on the TCR contract, but they have full access to it. They also get half of the challenger's original deposit, as well as because if we had the appeal, they get half of the challenger's appeal deposit. So they're rewarded for having to put in the work to defend themselves during this process.
What do I get?
You get nothing. You lose.
Awesome. So that was a lively, I hope you agree, lively demonstration of how the newsroom process works, the newsroom registration process works at Civil. Just before we open it up for questions, I wanted to kind of close on a few important points. The first is, as we mentioned, the Civil Constitution is now live. You can go and read it both on our blog, and we have a link to an open Google Doc where we are taking feedback from the community. So we're still calling it the beta draft, and we will publish the final version after including the community's feedback prior to our final launch, which is coming up very soon. Another exciting update is we just 30 or so minutes ago published our white paper, which you can also find on our blog. Yep, very exciting. And so make sure that you head over here, follow us at @joincivil or at joincivil.com to learn more and sign up. And our token sale is coming up very soon. One thing that I just wanted to show before we go to questions is a quick some mock-ups of what it actually might look like for a newsroom that's trying to begin the application process and get onto this registry. So. Like I said, these are our current wireframes, and we want this to be the most user-friendly crypto experience out there, since we are looking to make sure that knowledge of or experience with cryptocurrency is not a deterrent or a blocker for good journalists to be able to come onto the platform. So we've taken great strides to focus on product design and clear explanation of things. As you'll notice, earlier I spoke to how there's 4 steps to joining the Civil Registry. You have to set up your newsroom, and this goes into actually establishing a wallet address for your newsroom, along with your name. There's a process by which you're going through this, and we're walking you through the steps that it's necessary to integrate with or work with MetaMask. Once you've set up your newsroom, in this case, maybe you're calling it the Daily Planet, good name. We also then ask you to add all of the authors or editors who are going to be associated with this newsroom and their addresses, listing, as we've had it here, the charter or the mission statement. Transactions in process. And at a certain point, you have to also sign the Civil Constitution. And then your application is live, and people on the network are notified. So we're going to be publishing more of this, and other nice UI and product is launching very soon. So please stay in touch with us, and we're really excited to go live later this summer. Happy to take any questions now. Yes?
So it's a really helpful demonstration for how you join platform. Like Candy was really helpful. Why do I want to be on the platform as a newsroom, right? If I publish things, like, does it help me with revenue, distribution? Like, what about the platform is valuable that I want to, be on it?
Terrific question. So later today, I'm going to answer your question. Later today, we have a panel discussion where we are going to be talking about the civil ecosystem. So the civil ecosystem is all the things that we like to say are quote unquote built on top of this governance protocol. The governance protocol that we've walked you through here today is operating a bit like a city wall. You're either in or you're out. Once you're in, we are building apps and tools and services that will be a part of the launch, a publishing platform, discovery networks, the ability to transact with consumers, all as part of this. And like Nick was mentioning at the beginning, we believe that the fundamental value in the first place is the fact that a newsroom that is going through this process is committing themselves to the ethics and standards of journalism and making themselves publicly accountable to this community, which we think is sending a very different signal to citizens than there is right now today, to be able to determine what is in fact ethical and good journalism. And we think that's going to lead to a higher likelihood of financial contribution on the part of citizens to journalists seeking more citizen direct revenue. Yes?
So I saw application was done with one bag, right? And the challenge was done with the other bag. What is the appeal process? Is it with the same one bag worth of candy? Does it cost the same basically?
So yeah, the application and the challenge have the same deposit, and the appeal has a different deposit. So it could be a different value. We chose one bag because it was easier to distribute candy, but it could be a different value. That is actually determined by the council itself. To sort of regulate how often they get appeals because of how much they can handle. Yeah. And if someone were to challenge that appeal result, that challenge deposit would be the same as the appeal deposit.
Yes.
First of all, great presentation, super easy to understand. Really excited to see TCR in action. Second, I guess, I know you alluded to it with the eyes closed for voting. Do you guys utilize PLCR?
Exactly. Yep. PLCR voting is called a partial lock commit reveal, a bit technical for people. It's basically a way of ensuring that the vote isn't public until after it's over, so that the way that the vote is going doesn't cloud people's judgment. We want people to, you're sort of predicting the way that the vote is going to end up, and the best way to predict that is to judge according to the Constitution.
How are you going to overcome this centralized aspect of the council?
Great question. So we are appointing the first members of this council, but we want to decentralize that as fast as possible. So our white paper lays out a 1 year in the Constitution, a sort of 1 year MVP for this council. The council has 1 year to work with the community to implement a series of amendments that have to be ratified by the community, at which point at the end of 1 year, they either are or there's a continuing resolution for 1 more year. In the event that they don't succeed after 2 years, the tokens that we have distributed to the council as a means of compensating and incentivizing their behavior in this regard actually revert back to us, which, just to be clear, and this is laid out in the white paper, would be a disastrous result because obviously it would be even more centralized at that point and people would abandon the registry and the protocol because it wouldn't be what it set out to be. So the idea is that the council is motivated to get out of its own way and find a way to scale with the platform. And it has to do this through a community ratification process.
2 more questions.
2 questions from Costco. Is there a quorum for the voting?
Is there a quorum?
No, it's just a percentage. So, yeah.
And is there a process for revoking privileges once someone's already been accepted? I could imagine it'd be really easy to put out a false mandate or a falsely benign mandate and then change.
Yeah, absolutely. So even once a newsroom is whitelisted and on the registry, they can still be challenged at any time. So like I said, that the applicant has access to their tokens, but they remain on the TCR contract so that someone can come along and challenge them and start the whole voting process from there.
For example, all of this is in service of the fact that whatever statements the newsroom is making are their stated intent. So in my case, I was stating that my intent is to start a newsroom focused on Boston sports. If in fact, after we got through this process, I started writing about something awful, evil, fake, etc., and nothing to do with Boston sports, I would now be violating the Constitution because I'm not upholding what I said I was going to do, in which case that would be a valid challenge and I would be removed from the platform. Yeah, last question, I think. It's a very existential and difficult question. The answer is we want to be a direct-to-citizen or citizen-first ecosystem. We sometimes describe the relationship between journalists and citizens as sacred and at the center of the whole thing. So there are advertising models now that we think are pernicious and counter to our ethics. We also, though, don't like to say blanket statements that might, like never, that might limit the sustainability of newsrooms. So there are forms of sponsorship, for example, where perhaps you've probably seen like podcasts or nonprofit organizations will say, this gala was brought to you by these generous benefactors. And that is, of course, somewhat of an advertising relationship, but it's not quite the way we think of kind of ugly, targeted programmatic advertising. So at the moment, it's not something that we're building for, but it's not something that we feel comfortable saying never will there ever be this thing.